This is a short review and a little bit of setup information about how I put my Harvey table saw together. This is their midline 3 horsepower with a standard uh, cast iron table. I didn't go with the titanium nitride, it didn't make sense. I coated the top with carbon method, and it's really slippery and it's really well protected. The saw itself is amazing, and everything about dealing with Harvey has been fantastic. Customer service is excellent. They answer the phone. They're helpful. They're just awesome. One of the things you might notice right away is that I put my router table to the left side of the saw, and there's a couple of reasons for that. One is if you're running dust collection overhead, which I have to, as you can see, I don't really have any place on the floor to run it because this is at the front of the shop with no way to get anywhere other than overhead. It was really easy to install it on this side. I basically just left out the short extension table that it comes with to go next to the standard table, and use the same holes that were provided to attach the router. It worked out great. The router table is sturdy, heavy, and just beautiful. It's a work of art, and then look at this fence. It's just amazing. The adjustability on this is incredible. Repeatability. You set it up and it's always going to come back to the same place. Notice that it's got roller bearings for the slides. So when you're sliding it back and forth, it doesn't want to go off tilt. It doesn't get angled. It always stays exactly straight. I've moved it, locked it, moved it, measured it repeatedly, and it's always less than 1/1000th of an inch off in being perfectly square. That's just amazing. As you can see, I added the roller guides. That'll really help with small pieces like this that I'm going to be cutting soon. This fence is one of the really amazing things about the saw. It is just so solid, versatile, and so smooth. The thing just slides across without any effort. I had a unisaw with a Beastmeyer fence. That was a good fence. This is spectacular. And as you all know, this can go in either direction, down or up. And actually, some of my first cuts were in the down position. Some of these very thin pieces. It was just so easy to deal with it, and being able to use this push block, which I really recommend, being able to use that next to the fence and not have to deal with a high fence getting in the way. I'm going to be doing some rabbits where obviously I'm not going all the way through, so this has to come out. It's amazingly easy. Reach in here, and you can't see it obviously, there's no way to get a video in there, but you flip a little switch, and now you grab this, and it just comes right out. And that is so much nicer than what I had before, which required a tool, and then I had upgraded it, but you still had to take the throat plate off and reach in there and turn on an old knob. Now it just pops right out, we're done. The throat plate is attached with screws at the front and the back, so it doesn't move. It won't come out. I like that feature. It just seems a lot safer. The setup for dust collection on this is pretty standard. There's just a tube coming out of the side of it that you can connect to, and then you see out of the back of it, it goes up to the overhead. The overhead is nicely done. It's simple, but very nicely done, where the tube is the dust collection. And then for the router table, of course, we've got to split it off and run it over to the router table and the router box, which is also from them. As you can see here, in order to be lazy and not have to reach all the way underneath the saw, I just put a piece of threaded rod on the gate so that I can just reach over and open it without reaching down below the saw. And for the router, I just added a gate here. All of this dust collection tubing is really nice. It's done really well. It does a great job of picking up everything. There's very little that flies out of the saw or the router. Removing the router fence so that you can have the whole table is super easy. Slide all the way back, turn these to release them, and then just grab it and tilt it, and the whole thing pops out. And I built a table over here that I'll show you in order to keep it out of the way and not even have to deal with the dust collection tubing. This is just a really simple MDF shelf basically, and I put their guide pin here as both storage space and make sure it can't get knocked off. I use their stops to make sure it doesn't slide off either end, and it's super easy to handle, and it keeps everything organized and just ready to go right back on anytime I need it. It may not seem obvious how insanely huge this surface is. It has so much more surface area than the Unisaw, and it makes cutting just that much better when you have that a little more support. Bigger pieces are easier to handle, and the quality of the machining is just phenomenal. That's just a huge upgrade to have that much cast iron. The router box is nicely made. I mean, it's simple, it's sheet metal, but it's heavy sheet metal. It's not junk. It's much better than what I see from a lot of other brands. And you get easy access here to change your router settings. And if you had to, you could use a switch below it on the router. But I chose to buy a switch here and just mount it at the front of the saw, so it's easy to reach. The bottom line is that this is a really fantastic saw at quite an amazing price for everything that you get. I've used a lot of different table saws. I own a Unisaw, which everybody of course loves, and I did love it. This just turns everything up a notch. Everything's just a little bit better, smoother, more thoughtful design. There are so many little thoughtful features all over this saw. Like, they went and designed the saw that they would want to use if they were cutting wood themselves, is how I feel about it. You know, everything from the really nice little magnifiers, the adjustability everywhere, the fact that you can adjust this fence to do so many different things, including having it halfway out so that you can use it with the miter gauge. Oh, and then there's the miter gauge. This thing is just incredible. It is solid, beefy, heavy, just works so well, and it has, again, they thought of everything. It has so many fine adjustments, so you can chase your cut, do a test, move it in a 1/10 of a millimeter, or a 128th, I think this can do. The adjustability and the repeatability are exceptional. When you unlock this, and you unlock here, you can change the angle. Then when you relock it, it recenters, and it always finds the exact dead center of that spot. So again, I've tested it repeatedly, and it's always less than 1/1000th of an inch off when measured across a large angle. It's just amazing, and it does so much, and all of it is so smooth. So what happened with this is that I wasn't shopping for a new table saw, but I was using the Incra miter sled and the Incra miters, and they're good. But I saw another woodworker using this miter gauge, and I thought, well, I want to buy this miter gauge, and I went to their website, and well, then I bought the whole machine. It just made sense. Now, this has nothing to do with the saw itself, but it's part of my shop setup. It's just a very simple little MDF cart with some drawers, and it's where I keep things that I would want at the saw, blades, feather boards, grippers, that's router bits, things like that. And it's on wheels so that I can come out, and now I have a work surface right next to the saw. I can put my materials on here and get ready to run them through the saw, let them come out the back, and not have to deal with not having the materials right at hand.